couple today, but we'll make sure we get this recorded and shared on the ILS website and put it on our website again so you can find it. But thank you again for Alicia doing this financial wellness series. We're excited to do it again for the spring semester. I think we had a lot of great information and a lot of good participation. So if you need closed captioning, make sure you enable that at the bottom of the screen. And then if you have questions, you can put them in the chat, direct them directly to Alicia, or we'll have time at the end as well for questions. And this does count for the Be Well rewards. If you're using that for that activity, just make sure you submit a document of what date or like the title of the presentation. So let us know if you have questions and I'll turn it over to Alicia.
All righty, thank you. So I'm joining you from USU Extension's Empowering Financial Wellness team, and I'm excited to be here with you guys today. And it is also brought to you in part by the Department of Workforce Services as well. And I'm pretty excited to be talking about this today because tax season can be kind of stressful if you're not keeping organized and really ready for it. And so hopefully some of the tips that we talk about today and information can help act as a guide to be able to help you save some time and money during tax season. And so I'm glad that you can join us today, whether you are joining us live or if you end up watching this later on as well. So this is what we'll be talking about today. We have a couple of objectives. We'll be talking about how to set yourself up for success with tackling paperwork in general as far as organization. Also some tips on how to keep up with documents to maintain throughout the year so that tax season itself isn't as stressful. And then also how to create an organized system for your tax filing, and then just some tips in general to help out with tax season as well. And I just want to put out there a little bit of a preface that everybody does have a different and unique tax paperwork situation. And so what works for one person may not work for everybody. And so consider the things that we talk about today as a starting point, and feel free to modify the things we talk about to suit your own situation and really the right way in organizing anything, and also your tax documents as well, is the way that works for you. And so I'll be sharing some frameworks for you about how to organize, and feel free to just use those as a benchmark to get started in being organized for this tax season and prepared. And then also, as we are starting a new year still, making sure that we are being organized throughout the year so the next tax season doesn't end up overwhelming and stressful as well. And so just a little bit about our paychecks and having a little bit of a checkup and review in that area. Some items to consider as we are starting tax filing season. As it just opened up, I think about a week and a half ago, that you can start filing your taxes. So these are just a few things to consider. If you need to make any adjustments to your withholdings from your paychecks, some questions to think to yourself. Did you have too much taken out of your paycheck each month throughout the last year, or too little? Maybe even take a minute to reflect on how your taxes went last year. Did you get a large refund? That might mean that you had a little bit too much taken out throughout the year on each paycheck. If you got a small tax return, or if you owed taxes, might mean that you didn't have enough taken out of each paycheck. And so it might be a great time to just check in with your withholdings and see if there are any life changes or life events that have happened since you have updated your withholdings. I know that's something when I switched positions within the university that I needed to do, because when I started this position, I realized after a month or so that I was still under the single status when it came to taxes, but here I am now, married and with a dependent as well. And so it was important to get that updated. So these are just some things to consider as we are approaching the tax season, and also as we're at the beginning of a new year as well. And it is important to note as well that in 2020, so about 2 years ago, the W-4 form changed pretty considerably. So with that in mind, even if you haven't necessarily had any big life events or life changes happen, it still may be worth checking in on your withholdings to make sure that you're having the proper amount withheld each month as well. And we definitely recommend going on to the IRS website and using their withholding calculator to help in making sure that you have the proper amount withheld each month. And then it's pretty simple to update it for us with the university. You'll just be able to access and make any updates on Banner. So you'll go to Banner and then under employee and then under tax forms. And they also have it pretty simple, some instructions to help out in making sure that your withholdings are correct there as well. And then I also just want to put out there that the IRS has put out a warning this year to taxpayers that most people will be receiving a smaller refunds this year than last year. So for the 2021 filing year. And it's kind of unfortunate. I hate to be the bearer of bad news if you haven't heard that yet. And this is simply because they've lowered credits or credits have expired from the pandemic and the relief that they had issued for that. And there also haven't been stimulus payments that we can maybe be catching up on our taxes. And so it's all the more important this year to make sure that we are prepared to be able to take advantage of all of the applicable deductions and credits that are applicable for our situation as well. Because I mean, why not kind of do what we can to maximize our tax situation, I guess, or our tax refund. And so kind of with that in mind, just a raise of hands for those of you that are live, who can relate to this right here, this little comic. I know this has definitely been me at some points, that I haven't always been perfect when it comes to keeping paperwork in general organized, and also particularly all the paperwork that can come with tax season, depending on your own situation. So I want to invite you to take a minute and think about what went well last year when you filed your taxes. And maybe what was the most stressful part about filing last year? And just kind of think to yourself, do a little reflecting, and we'll use that a little bit here in just a minute with our first objective that we'll go ahead and jump into. So our first objective being how to set yourself up for success with tackling paperwork, because how many times have you said, I'm going to organize blank, or so my closet, my garage, my office next weekend, or my paperwork, or I am going to be so on top of my taxes this year. And then the weekend comes and goes, or February comes and goes, and you're like, wow, I am still not quite ready to go file my taxes. And making those random blanket plans aren't usually going to be as successful. So it is important that with anything that we want to tackle with organization or financial tasks, to consider using SMART goals to help break it down and also ensure that we are achieving them within our desired time frame as well. And so I do have just a little example that I wanted to go through in how you could apply SMART goals to your tax filing and getting ready for that and being organized with your tax documents. And this is where I want you to keep in mind what maybe went well last year that you want to continue doing for this tax season, or maybe what was kind of stressful and didn't go as well last year that you want to set a goal to do better with this year. And so with making them specific, I'm going to so this is going to help make your goal have a greater chance of being completed. So instead of saying that you want to organize your paperwork, instead say I'm going to get a set of file folders or envelopes, or it could be plastic bags, and label them for tax documents. And then with measurable, this can be helpful if you set quantifying measures. So you could say, I'm going to create at least 12 folders or envelopes sorted to based on the guidelines provided to me from this class. And I'm happy to share the slides with anybody that is interested with them as well, because the list that we'll include today might be kind of lengthy that you can't write everything down super quickly. So I'm happy to share the slides with any of you. And then attainable, plan steps to achieve this goal. So really kind of think to yourself, an example could be, okay, I want to get my taxes filed by February 21st. And then even just list out some basic steps that you would need to accomplish between you and anyone in your household to make sure that you're ready to file your taxes by February 21st. And then that takes us to our next one of making sure that it's realistic. So does that include involving other members of your family or households to make sure that that's realistic to accomplish? Is it that you need your spouse to get some documents together? Is that any older kids that you have in the household need to help with getting documents together? Also timely, so setting yourself some time frames. So with the example that I just gave, our time frame would be February 21st. So that gives us about a week and a half to get things together. So then that gives a little bit of urgency, and then we also know if we achieved it or not, if we're ready by February 21st. And then with this example on the slide, I'll spend an hour on Saturday and an hour on Sunday, and then I'll have my tax documents all together and organized. And you could elaborate from that in setting up a system to help you be organized going forward as well. And so, like I mentioned, this can be as simple or as detailed as you would like, but just set yourself a goal to help you out in your tax experience this year, we'll say. So then going a little bit into our second objective. So some tips to help with keeping up with documents kind of in general, and then we'll go a little bit more specifically into taxes. And so if you are kind of like someone that's in that little clip that I showed, or that little comic that I showed just a minute ago, where you have a pile of paperwork and you're just getting started, then you may consider just sorting it into these three basic piles first. So for filing, for immediate action, and then also to toss as well, because there are some documents that we don't need to keep forever, or there could be some extra pages that come in with our documents that we don't necessarily need to keep. So make sure to shred those. And also for filing, so it might mean any paperwork that had to do with last year's taxes or last year's tax filing that you maybe haven't filed yet or filed away, and make sure that you put that somewhere that you know where it is. And for immediate action, that could include ones that you need for this tax season. And we will go a little bit more in detail with that one here in just a little bit as well. But just a little bit more about this is that you could consider taking a folder or even a Ziploc bag. That's what we do. We don't just have folders laying around, but we always have Ziploc bags laying around. So we could take one of those and label it tax documents and put it somewhere like in your kitchen or in a drawer that you know where it is, and then you have that to be putting any documents in throughout the year as you receive them. Particularly if you are planning to itemize your deductions, then that can be particularly helpful as well. And then you can just kind of keep up with it a little bit more on a monthly basis as well, instead of leaving it until it's April and you're like, oh no, where did all those receipts end up that I got throughout the year? And then it can be a little bit more organized come actual tax season as well. And so just a little bit more about this right here. You can consider creating a catch-all folder envelope that is easily accessible, kind of like what I was talking about, where you just have them at least somewhere that you can put it easily throughout the year. So then it's not quite as stressful come tax time. And you're like, oh no, now I have to track down all these different papers or receipts as well. And you can also get a little bit more in depth with this and organize documents by types of deduction, like I mentioned, especially if you are going to be itemizing deductions as well. So great question, Kathleen. We will be talking about that here in just a minute, actually. So the question was about if it's helpful to itemize with your deductions, and that is going to be on a case-by-case scenario. So for 2022, the standard deduction numbers to beat, they have been raised a little bit to help keep up with inflation as well. But for single taxpayers, it's $12,950. For married taxpayers filing jointly, it's $25,900, and then heads of household $19,400. And so if you feel like you have other different deductions that would beat these numbers of the standard deduction, then it may be beneficial for you to itemize your deductions. If you're able to track down the necessary paperwork or receipts to be able to back that up and support it, then it would be beneficial, because then it can help with lowering your tax liability or at least increasing your refunds that you get as well. And then for 2023, they have also increased them as well. So kind of keep that in mind. These are the numbers for the 2022 filing season, but then keep it in mind that it has increased a little bit more for the 2023 filing as well. And then anybody that's 65 or over does get a little bit higher of a standard deduction as well. And so a little bit more about itemizing your deductions. There are quite a lot of different things that you can use as deductions for your taxes if that is your situation that's most beneficial for you. And this isn't a completely exhaustive list, but this is most of the things that can be itemized as deductions from your taxes. And I will mention, if anybody has also done 1099 work like on the side to supplement your income, then I would definitely recommend going on the IRS website and looking even more into all the different deductions that come with that type of work as well. So I'm not going to go extensively into this list right here, but this can act as a guide and a checklist kind of to, as you evaluate your situation and see if itemizing would be beneficial for you as well. And then There are lots of different documents that you may be required to have in filing your taxes. And this can be helpful. This again can be a little bit of a checklist right here. And again, some of these may be applicable to you and some of them may not. I will say that my least favorite one to have to use with my taxes is the 1099 that you get for interest and dividends, because I'm so proud of myself when I get those or that money and then I have to report it on taxes. But here, this again can act as a guideline. And I do also want to just kind of go back really quickly on this one. If you are thinking to yourself, wow, like more of these could be um, helpful for me or used for me than I thought. Like, if you didn't know about any of these and you're like, I don't have receipts for that. If you know that you paid for them either on a credit card or a debit card, you can probably have your bank or credit union help you print out a list of the things um, that you used your card for under those types of expenses. For example, in the past, we did food delivery, my husband did, and we weren't the best with keeping track of our gas receipts. And so we were able to have them search by the gas station and then like print us out a little sheet of our transactions at the gas stations that we went to most frequently. And so that was helpful, something to just keep in mind and consider if you are having trouble keep like tracking down any of the receipts that you may need. And like I mentioned, having some kind of checklist or organizer can help you avoid that paper chase down, and having those key documents all assembled that you need in advance. And I can't tell you how much time and energy that we could have saved ourselves if we would have had a better system in place, particularly when we had 1099 income, in tracking down all the different receipts for deductions. So hopefully some of this can help you guys in setting something up for this season and then also going forward as well. And so getting a little bit more specific really quickly about some of the folders that you could create to kind of have things even more organized going forward, or even just having documents more organized so that this year you're like, all right, I know that I have everything for this category and everything for this category is right here. And I'm not going to go completely into every single one of these, but just a couple I wanted to touch on. Could include, so for your income, that would be pay stubs, W-2s, 1099s, interest statements, dividend statements, and also if you ever serve jury duty, then also that would count as well. And then for medical expenses, again, I would recommend looking on the IRS website to see what medical expenses, but there are some of those that can actually be used as a deduction on your taxes as well, because I don't know about you, but every single medical expense it's not exactly a cheap area, and it can add up pretty quickly if you have any medical expenses. So consider looking into that and see if that could be beneficial for you in your tax situation. And then also charitable donations, any material donations as well as cash donations, keep receipts for those as well. And then there are some instances for child care payments that you'll want to keep receipts for those as well. And then the one that I just want to touch on down at the bottom would be self-employment receipts. If anybody has any side work that they're doing, keep any receipts for that, because odds are it can be used as a deduction. And then also on our top row with student loans. So your interest that you pay on that can also be counted as a deduction as well. In some instances, I believe. So you will want to keep any papers related to any payments made and interest that's charged as well. And again, there's really a lot of different things that we could go further into, that I would also recommend just looking on the IRS website and see what things are applicable for your situation. And you may not want to keep everything in physical paper copies, or you may also be receiving documents for taxes in digital form. And so it is important to make sure that you keep track of those things and have a system in place, or at least a certain place on whether it be on a external hard drive, or if you have a specific computer that you use just for your financial dealings. But it's important that you have a plan in place to keep track of those files as well. And you may also consider just recreating your physical system in a personal drive in digital form as well. And you may consider using either an external hard drive or cloud-based storage. These are some different options for cloud-based storage, and these ones right here on the screen, they do all offer a free basic storage plan, and usually most people will find that the free versions are sufficient for their needs, but they also do have upgrades if you find that you do have more storage needs as well. So you might be thinking to yourself, and this goes along with the digital storage, how long should you keep different documents? And that's a really good question. And according to the IRS, you should be keeping records for 3 years from the date that you filed your taxes, or for 2 years from the date that you paid the tax. So whichever one is later. And then keeping records for 7 years if you file a claim for a loss from a worthless security or bad debt deduction. And if you have a year where you don't file a tax return, then you will want to keep records indefinitely, because they can come and try and collect that tax liability, if they do find that there is one, indefinitely. And that can be kind of pretty stressful if you don't have records to support why you didn't file a return that year. And there are different reasons why people choose not to file returns in some years, whether incarcerated, or if you find that your income is below the standard deduction, then you may end up not filing that year as well. And if you do have a year where you don't file a tax return and you don't owe any taxes, you may still have up to 3 years to claim any refund that might be due. So if you have those situations, like I mentioned, or there are probably others, and you come further in the future and you're like, oh, I probably could have had claimed this credit or gotten this or that, then you do still have 3 years to go back and file so that you can get those credits and that refund as well. And really, ultimately, the more complicated your tax returns are, the more likely you should err on the side of caution and keep records longer than the minimum. So more so like the 7-year side. And especially if you're going to do that, err on the side of caution, you may consider just scanning your documents that you have and uploading them onto an external hard drive or onto cloud storage, so that you aren't having this massive pile of paperwork accruing and taking up space as well. And then just a couple of last tips that I want to leave you with. So, with filing your taxes. So first of all, is being organized can help you not only save money on your taxes, but also just time and stress as well in trying to track down different paperwork and documents and receipts as well. And then we do want to encourage you to file your taxes early. I heard Alyssa say that she's getting ready to do that, and that's so awesome. But we want to encourage you to file early for a couple of different reasons. First of all, you'll get your refund sooner rather than if you wait until tax day. And then also, you'll be able to help protect yourself from identity theft or tax identity theft. Because if you wait until the end, then there's more odds or higher chances that somebody could try and steal your identity and intercept your tax refund, which we definitely don't want to have happen. And going along with that is being safe and secure. So consider going on the IRS website and creating a PIN. And so they will then use that as an extra security measure to help with verifying your identity. And so you can request this PIN from the IRS. It's called an identity protection PIN, and it's a 6-digit number that prevents someone else from filing a tax return using your social security number or individual taxpayer identification number. And so this is a PIN that's only known to you and the IRS, and it's good for 1 calendar year. So it's something that you would need to set up each year, but it's a relatively simple process, but definitely one that's worth doing as well. And then just lastly, I do want to mention there is VITA that is offered. Usually there's people up on campus that help out with it. And then also Bragg has people helping out with it as well. So it's volunteer income tax assistance. And so that's a free tax preparation service. And it's one that we have utilized in the past and had great experiences with it. And definitely something to check out and see if you would be interested in using. They do have an income limit of about $50,000. So if that includes you, then feel free to check them out as well so that you don't have to pay someone to prepare your taxes. Or there are also other free options for you to do your taxes yourself as well. So just a couple of action items that I want to leave you with as we are closing is to practice writing a SMART goal, particularly with your taxes. Like I mentioned, it can be as simple as I want to have my taxes filed by this date. And here are a couple of steps that I need to go through to accomplish that. Pick a filing system to organize your tax documents, especially as we're starting a new year, so that next year doesn't have to be stressful. But then also just find something that works to help you out in this tax season as well. And then lastly, to commit yourself to a certain amount of time to achieve these different tasks that you set yourself. And then I just want to remind you of a couple of resources that we have is our PowerPay Money Master online self-paced course that's a deeper dive into personal finance topics. And it's a video and worksheet based course, and that can be accessed on powerpay.org. And if you guys are here in Utah, which pretty sure that all of us are, then you can do it completely for free. And we are just wrapping up a hybrid class series where we've been going through the modules together. And you guys are more than welcome to join us for our last one tonight, but we will also be doing that same type of hybrid series again in the spring as well. And I would love to hear your feedback of what you liked and what we can continue doing better at with our presentations to best serve you guys. If you wouldn't mind doing this 2-minute survey, and we will send you guys some swag as well. If you'll scan the QR code, or in just a minute, I can put the link to it in the chat as well. And I do want to thank you for joining us today. And we are on social media at Utah Money Moms, and then our blog is utahmoneymoms.com. And we also have other great resources and classes that we're doing that can be found on finance.usu.edu/EFW. And we're happy to teach a free class like this if you have a group that you're a part of, either on campus or just in your own lives in the community as well. And you can get in contact with me or on our website as well. And thank you guys again. And we can stop the recording and ask or answer any questions you guys may have as well.